The MBA is so much more than a piece of paper. And it's more than understanding balance sheets, though you'll get to do that too. This really is a transformational journey. It's a wonderful investment in yourself. You build new skills, you open new doors, create new opportunities, and become, of course, part of this vibrant network that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. So it's a pleasure to welcome three guests that are experiencing exactly that. April Rowland. April is in the 2025 class at the University of Florida, the Warrington College of Business. She'd studied fine arts at Ringling and then a master's in applied behavior, 10 years with Pioneer Learning provider ABA Technologies. And then we'll let her tell us about how that summer internship at Bain turned out. Joined by Taylor Starks, who, again, the class of 2025 at McCombs. You can tell us about how quickly the last 2 years must have rushed by, Taylor. You'd studied econ at UT Austin and then a successful early career with IBM, becoming a senior consultant. And then joining us from the Cole School at Kennesaw State, Elijah James, also in the class of 2025. So this is all very fresh and that enthusiasm that I'm sure you will share. Had already done a BBA and then into the MBA program. That is a financial analyst with CB Richard Ellis, CBRE. So all three of you, thank you for being with us at Centre Court and to share your own inspiring stories. April, I talked about personal pathways. I don't know if there were many that had studied fine arts before they made their way into a business school classroom, but tell us about that background and what ultimately led you to apply to business school for your MBA.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went to school for fine arts and I graduated in, not to date the experience, but I graduated in 2009, which for folks who might remember what 2009 was like in a job market, it was not great to have a fine art degree. I'll be entirely transparent. But I ended up working in doing some instructional design for ABA Technologies and was there for 10 years, loved it, got a master's degree in behavioral science, and worked into a leadership role there doing more like internal strategic and data analytic work, which I loved. But I thought, oh, this makes up like a slice of what my job is. I would love for this to be my whole job, this kind of like project-based sort of work. And I didn't know what that would look like. And I talked to somebody here at UF who actually does what's called our ISOM program, our Information Systems of Management program. And he goes, you might want to do an MBA and look into consulting. I think that's more what you're going to be able to leverage better with your experience. And I like to think he was right. So here I am. That's the story of how we got here.
You never know where a conversation might lead to, and the thoughts that then start to. Well, we'll be talking about obviously the program and how consulting has since unfolded. Taylor, you're much like April, you're very enjoying your career, doing very well. So no one has to go to business school. What was the spark that led you to consider the MBA?
Yeah, when I was working at IBM in their consulting practice, I was working with a lot of finance team members and just seeing their day-to-day work and learning what they did kind of got me more interested in the finance world in general. And I realized I was kind of lacking that background. So I thought, the best way to learn about it was to go back and get my MBA and kind of figure out where I wanted to land within that finance world.
And taking business studies further, for Elijah, you'd done a BBA, so maybe you'd looked at balance sheets already. But what was the thought of, well, where can I take this next, and how will that open up new doors with the program at Coles?
Yes, so when I was getting my bachelor's degree in finance, I also had a taxation internship at Southern Company. And I was working a lot with accountants and auditors and CPA, and I thought it would be very beneficial to my career to become more well-rounded and get exposure to all facets of business. So that's what led me to get my MBA.
So then, the idea is in our heads, and finding the right program, finding the right personality and culture of an institution. So April Business School, 10 years into your career, what led you to Warrington and feel that the Gators was the right fit for you?
So one of the things that I think is very unique about UF's like full-time on campus program is we're a small, tight-knit cohort. So my cohort is in the 2-year program was 18 students, 1-8. And so we have like a lot of direct contact with our career services, and our career services is very hands-on. And I knew for the kind of pivot that I wanted to make that I wanted to work really closely with somebody on, my interview skills because I was rusty from 10 years of not interviewing. And so that really kind of like partnership take on career services was a big reason I came here.
Now, I would stay in Austin Taylor just for the ice cream on Guadalupe or on South Congress. Certainly, my twins would. You knew UT Austin, perhaps hadn't had as much interaction with McCombs. So thinking about, well, do I try somewhere else in the country versus staying local? What were the thoughts and what really attracted you to the MBA program at McCombs?
Yeah, I would say the biggest factor, because I wasn't living in Austin at the time. I was in Houston considering going to other schools. And the biggest factor when I came and visited was just the community. I think if you talk to anybody at McCombs, they'll probably say the same thing. I had worked remotely for 3.5 years before that. So I was really looking to build a strong network, not just for, the next 2 years, but the next 10, 20 years down the line. And I saw right instantly at McCombs that I'd be able to do that. Everyone was just so welcoming and helpful. And that still stands true, now that I'm in my 2nd year in the program. I can go to anyone and be like, hey, I need help with homework. Hey, I heard that you interned there or that you maybe know someone at that company, and they'll always be able to or be willing to lend a hand. And so that was the biggest thing that stood out to me about McCombs.
Maybe for undergrad and going to college, Elida, perhaps our parents can't wait to get us out of the house. And so when are you going to go to college? But it strikes me that, going back grad school, doing your MBA is very intentional. Have you seen a difference between the undergrad and then those that have chosen to go back to business school because they want to build additional skills and perhaps, specialize in a particular field?
Yes, so I try to look at it holistically as like a 5-year journey. The first 3.5 being for my bachelor's, and then still being fairly young and deciding that I get a lot more benefit by staying at the same university, right, in the graduate program at Kennesaw State for the last 1.5 years. So I think if you think about it, being 22, right, a lot of people are still in school at 22, and I just think kind of challenging myself and getting that experience in graduate school at an early age at Kennesaw, where I had a good experience for my bachelor's, was just the right decision.
I'm just going to try and think and remember what it's like being 22. This might take a couple of minutes, viewers, but stick with me. But in terms of, you'd already had a very influential internship, and now you've got the role at CBRE. Has that made a difference where you can take the learning and apply it in a professional setting?
Yes, so I think it's always been really unique to kind of get the theoretical benefits in class and learning about finance, but then also meshing that at the same time with the real world applications of finance. I think it just pairs for a really unique experience. So I've had a lot of experience in accounting, and kind of like April said, you get a little bit of slice of something, and you kind of want to get more into that, and that's kind of how it felt with finance. So at CBRE, the world's largest commercial real estate firm, it really felt like a good mesh to get all of the financial acumen I had learned from my bachelor's and master's, and then apply it to the real world as a financial analyst.
Well, we're going to invite you back in 10 years and see exactly where it's taken you, whether with CBRE or other opportunities. Perhaps it was daunting, April, to go back to school. So there you are on the first day, and they say, well, here's the core, here are all the additional electives that you can take. There are clubs, presumably more things than you could fit into a possible day. So how did you then sort of think about the balance of your studies, but also all of these other opportunities for learning and leadership development?
Helps to unmute. Yes, absolutely. So in my first graduate program, I had kind of been taught like never say no to opportunities, which I do not recommend now. But I think a lot of it was exploration, was how I kind of picked and chose what I wanted to do in my extracurriculars. So I came in thinking I might be interested in consulting, or I might be interested in consumer market knowledge. So I like participated in case competitions and also participated in, we had a kind of retail space or retail project within the MBA program, and I did some marketing initiatives there and just kind of like played and explored and looked at things as an opportunity to just be learning outside of the classroom in this continuous fashion. I found I didn't say no to probably as much stuff as I could or should have, but I don't regret it. It's been great to kind of meet so many people in each of those activities as well.
Right. I'm sure at IBM already, whether it's healthcare and Watson or the cloud, I mean, they engaged in so many different sectors, Taylor. So as you thought about, well, here's the core program, but how you then look to shape and personalize through electives, was that something that you were very deliberate about?
Yes, like I mentioned, I really wanted to learn more about the world of finance. So my first year, I pretty much took every finance elective I could that was offered to me. And then after feeling like I got a really good handle and kind of foundational knowledge about finance, in my second year, I was like, okay, I'm going to open up to more things where either I'm lacking or I'm just simply interested in. So for example, one thing that I really didn't know anything about was marketing. So I decided to take a couple marketing classes, which have turned out to be some of my favorite. So really just at first, starting with my first interest and then going to make sure I have like a well-rounded business knowledge is kind of how I decided to build my course for the
Okay,
two.
so staying with that, the finance deeper, even greater skills, and that's like, yeah, but marketing is really cool.
Yeah.
The chance to then pivot and how that might reflect some of the career choices and things that you're looking at. How do you um, adapt to all of these different opportunities that are opening up to you?
It is difficult to say no to opportunities. I think that's the best thing about the MBA. It really just opens you up to so many opportunities that you never even knew about. But I think it's important to remember why you first got your MBA. I think that's sometimes a challenge people that lose sight of. And so for me, it was like one, learning more about finance, and then two, trying to break into the energy industry. So I've tried to stay true to that through like the roles that I'm either recruiting for or the organizations that I'm joining while I'm here on campus.
Mm. Elijah, you talked about like a sort of a 5-year plan, and it shows a great level of maturity. If I ask, we had a panel just now with the admissions teams of your 3 schools, and when we talk about average age, they say, well, it really doesn't capture the diversity. Some will be in their early 30s, you're in your early 20s. To get your MBA so early in your career, do you feel that then sets you up, for the 10, 15, 20 years that come with the skills that you're developing at the Coles?
100%. I think like comparing myself to people in the MBA and people who are my age that haven't done the MBA, I think the way that I think about companies and the business world is just completely different to if I had never taken or gone and got my MBA. And I think it'll be really valuable for the next 5, 10, 15 years for the way I just move through life, make decisions, even personal finance, wealth decisions. I'll be able to use the knowledge that I'm learning now to make those.
And perhaps, Elijah, you'll meet colleagues at CBRE, approaching 30, early 30s and saying, business school, but there's a big opportunity cost. And you front-loaded everything. You've already been back and got your MBA. Was that something very deliberate? You felt that if you had, all of this learning early in your career, it would then serve you incredibly well for the decades to come?
Yes, so I think the decision with that, while deliberate, was kind of also a huge gamble as well. So if you kind of look at the job economy, it really tightens in white collar sectors. So I think me getting my MBA was kind of saying, while I do have my bachelor's, I don't plan on pivoting. I don't plan on going into any other career fields that finance is where I'll be for a long time. And I think the MBA kind of solidifies that. So like you said, you do kind of run into people, maybe 10 or 15 years senior to me, who say, I really do want to consider getting my MBA. And, responsibilities are a lot different at 22 or 42 than they are at my age of 22. So you have a family, right? You have kids and you have a lot of other responsibilities. And while noticing that, I just thought, I have a lot of free time. And I think that would be better allocated to getting my MBA.
We start to think, April, about the impact of AI, and I don't know if design work in 2009, where we were on our thinking of GPT and Wally and what it could create for us. But that is today's reality. Again, this sense that what you're learning, it's not just for the first job coming out of business school, but what is it? A mindset, a way of approaching problems that's going to be valuable to you to all the next steps of your career?
Yes, so the I when I look at like the classes that I'm taking and like some of the ways we are kind of being prepared for like new technology, I definitely think, back in 2009, none of that was on the horizon. You're 100% right. So one of the things I've really enjoyed in my classes is seeing the application of some newer tools. I've gotten to take some classes that some of the information systems students take as electives, which gives kind of some like understanding of application of those tools. And then in my internship in consulting, we had like a really good primer on using a lot of the newer tools and technologies, ethics, privacy, and things around that as well, things that just weren't on our radar. And so I think I've been equipped for kind of how to evaluate those things going forward as well.
Well, when a business school, Taylor, is part of a wider university and then a wider ecosystem, I mean, Austin that has been attracting, so many tech employers and others that have arrived in the city, I probably wouldn't recognize it today. Opportunities to make those connections, guest speakers or company visits or, projects within firms. Are there lots of opportunities to build those connections and the learning experience?
I clicked the wrong button. Yes, there are tons of opportunities. We have, first thing that we have is this opportunity called McCombs Plus projects. We have 60 different companies that come and have a project that they want you to work on for a semester. It's almost like a mini consulting project. And that could be, the big consulting companies like Deloitte or PwC or McKinsey, or it could be, a smaller, or it could be like a tech firm like Oracle, or it could be like a smaller firm if you're more interested in the startup space. And so it's really just any industry, any interest, you can find something to get involved with. And a lot of the times, those opportunities can lead to internships for first years. In addition to that, like you said, we have so many speakers that come on campus. I'm actually the VP of, I forget what he's the VP of, former VP of, but he used to work for Boeing, and we're talking about Boeing in my corporate scandal and ethics class today. So he's coming to speak to us. And so there's just so many unique opportunities like that because we are in such a big city with so much happening. And they come right here to us, which is really, really unique, I think.
So great guest speakers, but also the people sitting next to you, Elijah. I mean, there's someone very smart at the front that's curating these discussions around different, business themes or skills. But do you also feel that you're learning a lot from your classmates?
Yes, almost as much as I'm learning from the professor who's lecturing. So I've had really cool and unique experiences where I've worked in accounting at Southern Company, but I've met design and grid engineers who also work at Southern Company, but maybe at the plant. So kind of getting that knowledge and insight from the same company, but a different part of the company, it's been really insightful. Also learning that when people get their MBAs, like April coming from a fine arts background, or some people coming from maybe a technical background, such as engineering or computer science. So it's really a lot to learn from the people sitting next to you.
Mm. And the career journey. April, you had a summer internship with Bain, and you can tell us where that led. But does that sort of start from day one or even before you start the program? The work with the Career Management Center to then give this shape and structure and exploration of the next steps of your career. How does that work?
So the first steps for figuring that out, obviously, start with you and your application. But the point of my interview was really where I started to work in a collaborative way with Career Services. One of the people from Career Services at University of Florida does interviews with incoming potential MBAs, and essentially outlines hey, what do you think you're going to do with this, right? What, and is looking to establish, right, how your interaction with them is going to help you get there. And that started a really early process. And then even the summer before I started my MBA program, I was doing things like poets and quants panels for consulting and other pre-MBA programs to really learn about not only whether or not that was something I wanted to do, but also how do you get in, like into the front door, right? And starting case interview prep and all of those other tools and things that are necessary to get into consulting started so early.
We'll assume, Taylor, that you put together a compelling application that the MBA admissions committee at McCombs reviewed. Here you are. And maybe it talked about finance and what you were describing for the first year. Did you have the sense, I really need to know what I want to do post MBA, or no, this is an incredible opportunity to step back and really explore?
I think you need to know what you want to explore. If it's, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, that's fine. But I don't think you can just walk in and say, I don't even have an idea. You need to have some type of, research that you've done, knowing what the opportunities are post-grad and say, okay, these are the type of opportunities that I'm interested in and that I might want to take advantage of. Because for me, like the thing that I wrote about in my application essay is not what I ended up doing over the summer. It's something that I wanted to explore and was able to take advantage of while I was here. But, you still need to know what those things are that you want to explore before you come.
And then that whole search and presenting yourself professionally, Elijah, are you given support in terms of how to effectively network, interview skills, just the whole, how does that work, to really shine as you're then out in the job market?
Yes, so Kennesaw has done a great job through like resume building, interview prep. So it's through them that I've gotten, 6 internships, right? And 1 full-time financial analyst offer, where if it wasn't for them, showing up in office is something that doesn't really happen a lot. And maybe that person next to you in the elevator is the CFO, right? Or he's the executive vice president. So being able to speak towards your strengths is something that I've learned a lot here at Kennesaw State.
And the idea of strengths, Elijah, one of our interviews was saying, it's really important to amplify your strengths. Sure, there are things that we want to improve and further strengthen, but do you get that sense of self-awareness? Hey, these are things that I'm really good at, and the program's helping me to be even better at those things.
Yes, so I think it's kind of like that intellectual curiosity is one of the strengths that I would highlight, being so young and junior in my career, right? There's people who have years of experience. It's funny because when I talk to some of my colleagues, right, they've been in the finance field as long as I've been alive. So I think kind of leaning in on my strengths, right, and kind of using people around me to help me with not so weaknesses, but areas of improvement, as I like to call them. That's something that I really credit the university with.
Right. And that support from the network, I think University of Florida is what, like 500,000 alums, some already Warrington's in the tens of thousands, but there's a lot of Gators out there, both through the program and then a sense, April, of how you would then look to give back, but how Gators do give back. We talk about the power of the network. Is it something that's really tangible?
Absolutely. I was told about it coming in, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sure that some alumni like to help." When I was doing networking, my most effective networking was always with other UF alum, and even if they weren't from the Warrington Business School, right? Like I would reach out to folks who had graduated 10 years ago from engineering and just saying like, hey, I'm interested in XYZ firm that your aunt, where you used to be aunt. I'm a current, UF MBA student. And I mean, easily would give me, like 20, 30 minutes of their time to talk about what their career journey has been, to see if there were other, UF alum that they could also connect me with. And so the power of that alumni network has been impossible to overstate.
And giving 20, 30 minutes of their time, Taylor. I mean, these are busy, successful people, but then they see your McCombs email address, or as you reach out to them through other channels that the school then provides. Similar, have you benefited yourself from the networking and a sense of how that is going to continue to shape and open up new opportunities in the years ahead?
Yes, for sure. That McCombs email address or just saying, even just saying MBA student gets you so far. I think people are willing to help a student learn, take them to the next level. And so it's really important to take advantage of that while you are a student. I know there's interviews that I've been able to get simply because I was networking with the right McCombs alums at companies. So it's just really, really unique opportunity to take advantage of.
Right. As you went into the program, Elijah, thinking, yeah, all of these skills, we're working in a world of AI and analytics and the future of finance. How can I sort of future-proof my career? But at a personal level, has there been a moment, I don't know, an exchange, a classroom, or some moment where like, wow, just learned something about myself, or an unexpected moment that you hadn't planned in business school? What would be some of the takeaways?
Yeah, I think that moment kind of comes every day I wake up. Just realizing being a full-time MBA candidate and working a full-time job, as you can imagine, right, there's a lot that's required of me day to day. So I learned personally, right, I learned a lot of time management. I learned a lot about being intentional going into a busy day where I'm maybe in office, right, but then as an evening MBA candidate, I'm in class for almost 3 hours. So learning personally that it's not really how I feel, but it's also what I get done that I think matters the most, and that's the most important takeaway.
Now, starting off with a smile on our face, that's a wonderful way to think about it. And therefore, if you could, April, if you could go back to your first day and give yourself advice from everything, the 2 years must have gone by so fast. Um, what advice would you give yourself, to get the most out of this experience and the investment that you've just made in yourself?
So I think I went in slightly, I think hesitant of the concept of like MBA being a transformational experience and the power of the connections you make with your cohort. And I went in, I think, slightly skeptical of that because I didn't have those kinds of experiences prior in my other degrees. And I think embracing that sooner would have made the whole experience better. It certainly happened. I think it happens to all of us. At some point we go, actually, you know what? These people that are next to me, like they'll have my back, like, 5, 10, 15 years from now in my career and personally. But I think that like leaning into that sooner and really like, building those connections quicker. I would absolutely say that's the big one.
Right. Even a sense of imposter syndrome. Taylor, I don't know if that was, for you, but, you show up and think, why did they offer a place to me? There are so many other smart people in this program. Again, advice that you would have given yourself to really optimize the incredible 2 year journey that you're about to take.
Yeah, I think leaning on the people sitting next to you, because what they know that you might know, versus vice versa, you may know something that they don't know. And it's really at UT a team effort in class, outside of class. We're always here helping one another. So making sure that you really don't see each other as competition, but see each other as like a helping hand.
Hmm. Yeah, is that something, Elijah, that yes, you might, be looking for the next steps in your professional career, but there is incredible support. You're not competing with each other. That someone will help you with your interview prep, or there was always someone there for you.
Yeah, so even just like, outside the classroom, everybody has been really helpful. And there's been kind of a like camaraderie developed between all the MBA candidates in the program. To just realize that, when I do well, they do well. And when they do well, I do well as well. So everybody in the program is representative of the university, right? And not trying to go against each other. So that's something that I've noticed.
We said at the beginning, you don't have to go to business school to be a success. You'd already achieved that. And our viewers are in a place, April, where you were, I guess, a couple of years ago, business school, someone talked to me about an MBA. I should take a look into this. So it's great that they're being able to share your experiences. We've talked about advice you'd give to yourself, but what advice would you give to them as they think about an MBA and I guess Warrington in particular?
Yeah, so I think something Taylor said earlier is really important of, knowing the parameters of what you're trying to get out of an MBA, I think is like so important. I had parameters that I think coming in were somewhat vague, but they became more refined as I started to come in. And I think that having an idea of, again, just kind of steal Taylor's comments here, to have a set number of things you're looking to explore is so important and so helpful. And I think that when you come into especially something like a school like UF, also having like hitting a mentality of hitting the ground running, of like, I am going to, jumpstart this recruiting experience as quickly as I can, and just, kind of, just go after it. And I think that's an important thing to have in mind as well, coming into especially like a smaller program, but we're all very excited and, career motivated kind of folks here.
Yeah. The sense of doing something very purposeful and intentional, and yet, Taylor, a price tag that comes with it. There's an opportunity cost. So that step, it's a big step. Sort of your thoughts that might reassure our viewers about taking that step. It's clearly working for you, and I'd also love to know what comes next after you graduate.
Yeah, good question. One thing I wish I had known before I applied, just in terms of preparing, is how much application prep there is out there. As someone who was a first gen for college, first gen for MBA, I was just unaware of those kind of resources. So I think utilizing those resources is also a really good first step at just making sure you're crafting the best possible application to whatever schools you're applying. And then once you're getting here, kind of what I already touched on, making sure you kind of have your plan for what areas you want to explore and how, and the steps and the groups that you want to join on campus that are going to help you get to that end path. So for me, that end path, like I said, I kind of really want to go back into energy. And so right now I'm recruiting with a number of energy firms in Houston, where I'm originally from. I actually just made it to the last round and with a company I found out last night. So working on that, and hopefully we'll hear back pretty soon.
Right. Fingers crossed for that one. And yeah, it's actually great. I think for Center Court, we should have sessions with people 10 years out, because you're moving into those exciting new opportunities, but this is going to continue to give back in the years that come. Elijah, maybe with your advice, and also, some of our viewers would say, well, MBA, specialized masters, what would be the right fit? You chose the MBA, but your thought process, and then the advice that you'd share with other candidates.
Yeah, so I think my thought process, because I had seen this as a post on LinkedIn where there's like this huge conversation going that's like, well, is an MBA worth it, right? Or why an MBA? And somebody had broke down and said, well, an MBA can be looked at as a gym membership, right? Just because you have one doesn't automatically guarantee the results that you'll want to see. And I think it's kind of the same thing for an MBA. That having an MBA or pursuing an MBA won't automatically guarantee success in your career. It actually has to be a lot of application and intentionality behind your MBA, right? Are you networking with the people from your university? Are you being proactive in your recruiting efforts? So that's kind of the advice that I'd give to people, is that, just if you want one or if you're considering pursuing one, you can't assume, right, that will give you the success that you'll want to see. And I'm pretty sure you said advice after that.
Yeah, whether it's the MBA or the specialized masters, already you've talked about the importance of intentionality, but perhaps just words of encouragement for viewers as they think about their next steps.
Yes, and I think the payoff, right, or the return on investment for an MBA, it can't be monetized, right? It can't really be compared to anything, just because seeing how it's worked out for me really junior in my career. As I stated, being a financial analyst at the world's largest commercial real estate firm, I don't really have any doubt that me pursuing my MBA and almost to completion is really what helped me to get in such a prestigious company.
Mm. It's a really great point that I think all of you have made. Of course, this experience has given back in so many ways, but at the heart of that, it goes both ways. And you have brought ways. We're just really grateful that you've also shared some of that energy and giving back with Center Court so that our viewers can benefit from your insights and your perspectives. So thank you. Thank you, April, Taylor, Elijah. It was great having you with us and to capture all of those thoughts. Pleasure.